Now the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Geraghty.
And welcome, everyone, to the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America, along with Jim Geraghty of National Review. Good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today, as usual. And, Jim, we start with the good, and the president has made it very interesting on a number of levels lately in the way he's tweaking Republicans, but he's been tweaking both parties on the issue of whether or not to pass sanctions to apply against Iran if these never-ending negotiations for a long-term agreement on their nuclear pact don't come about. The president, in his joint press conference with David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, last week, saying, no, don't do that. You're just going to make it harder for us to make a deal. He basically said this in his State of the Union address that they're making progress. He said they've halted the nuclear program. That was interesting to learn. But Republicans and Democrats firing back. House Speaker John Boehner, without consulting with the White House, inviting Benjamin Netanyahu to address Congress this spring, specifically about the Iran threat. And then yesterday on Capitol Hill, two Obama administration officials went up to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee to explain why it would really send the wrong message if we were working on sanctions in case the negotiations didn't work. And here's what the Democratic ranking member, Bob Menendez of New Jersey, had to say in response to that.
I have to be honest with you. The more I hear from the administration and its quotes, the more it sounds like talking points that come straight out of Tehran. And it feeds to the Iranian narrative of victimization when they are the ones with original sin. An illicit nuclear weapons program going back over the course of 20 years that they are unwilling to come clean on.
Jim, we talked about Tulsi Gabbard ripping the administration about not identifying radical Islam as a problem. Now you've got Bob Menendez going strong on this. There are other Democrats who are saying similar things. It really appears that, at least on some issues, even the Democrats have had enough here.
Yeah, I was going to say, this really jumps out at you. For those who thought that there really was absolutely nothing that could possibly get congressional Democrats to oppose Obama in a significant way, it's certainly in the numbers required for an override of a veto, we're starting to reach that point with this group. And I think there are two things that kind of jump out about the way Obama interacts with people and his attempts at persuasion. One is his constant assumption of bad faith of those who disagree with him. For example, in the State of the Union, he basically said a vote for sanctions is a vote for war. And, he's basically accusing anybody who doesn't trust his ability to stop the Iranian nuclear weapons program at the negotiating table, where we've been for years with absolutely no real progress. If you don't have faith in him, you are a warmonger. And for obvious reasons, folks like, Menendez, who are otherwise down the line pretty liberal guys, don't like that. And then the second thing is, in this meeting, he says to Menendez, well, I understand why members say these sorts of things and act this way. There's pressure from special interests and donors. Apparently, Menendez stood up and interrupted him, and he says, I take personal offense to that. I've been working on this for many years, and I'm not motivated by political considerations. Now, Greg, when Obama says special interests and donors, who do you think he's talking about?
I can't imagine. Probably the same people Jim Moran blamed for getting us into the Iraq War.
There you go. I was going to go with Pat Buchanan, and he called the Israeli Amen Corner. Basically it's Israelis and the Jews who are up to that. Obama's been accused of anti-Semitism and kind of, strongly denied that. But once you start assuming that people are only opposing you because of special interests and donors, there's some pretty ugly implications to that. And think about it. This is to Menendez. This is to somebody Obama ostensibly likes or is an ally to. And so if he talks like this to his friends, we know how he treats his enemies. We're in year 6, going into year 7 of this presidency. Obama doesn't really know how to persuade someone, and in fact really only knows how to attack someone when they disagree. And this may be reaching the breaking point where even Democrats, coupled with the fact that there's absolutely no indication that Iran is stepping away from its nuclear weapons program or that these negotiations are going anywhere, that Obama's bad faith style might be catching up with him.
All right, on to the bad martini now, Jim. And Republicans, as we know, have their largest majority in the House of Representatives since the late 1920s. I believe it's, 246 Republicans in the House following the Michael Grimm resignation. So they've got almost 30 votes to burn, and they can still pass whatever they want. 30 votes from their own party, that is. One of the things they were planning to do was vote today on the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act. Basically, what this does is ban abortions after 20 weeks in the womb, because science is pretty clear that at the latest, at 20 weeks, the unborn can feel pain. There was an exception in there for rape. The clarification on rape, though, was that you had to have filed a police report. And this was apparently too much for North Carolina Republican Congresswoman Renee Elmers. She didn't like that part of it. And then up at the retreat in Pennsylvania a few days ago, she thought it was a really bad sign that one of the first bills the Republicans wanted to do was on abortion because millennials might not like it. Jim, this is not the start we were hoping for.
No, this is really phenomenally disappointing, and the reaction has been so strong. There's a part of me that wouldn't be surprised if the House Republican leadership actually, bends back the other way. And in fact, I really hope they do. Because even if you don't pass the bill, let's say you have a whole bunch of Republican lawmakers say, you know what, this goes too far for me, I can't go with this. I mean, the reporting requirements weren't much of an issue last year, but for some reason, sometime between now and then, Renee Elmers and some unknown number of other Republicans have a problem with that. Then vote no, all right? And if they vote no, they vote no. But the whole idea of, well, we're not going to bring it to the floor just comes across as cowardly. There are a lot of pro-lifers who feel deeply betrayed by this. The whole idea was to pass this on the day of the March for Life. And now there are a whole bunch of really, really irked and very cold people marching on the mall today and heading to their lawmakers' offices. And so you're right, it just seems like a debacle. It's so spectacularly wrongheaded. I just can't understand why you wouldn't say, because if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. And then the grief is on the people who voted no. If you're in leadership and you say, okay, we're not going to vote on it, well, now you're not only that, you're denying all the pro-life Republicans the opportunity to say, hey, this is what I stand for, this is what I support, and I'm willing to do it. And the idea that this by itself is going to somehow have some sort of serious long-term electoral consequence for the party, as you said, one, isn't held up by the polling, and then two, it's a scene where, from The Simpsons, where Sideshow Bob keeps stepping on the rakes over and over again. He keeps whacking himself in the face. About as bad a start as you could possibly think of, particularly if you're a pro-life Republican.
On to the crazy Martini now. And this is your work, Jim, from earlier this morning, entitled Jeb Bush's Big Innovita Headache. This is about Jeb Bush's connection to a firm called Innovita and its chief executive officer, Claudio Osorio. This organization got a $10 million loan from the government's Overseas Private Investment Corporation to build and operate a panel manufacturing facility in Haiti shortly after the devastating earthquake there in 2010. Only problem is none of the money ever went to any projects in Haiti, and the aforementioned Mr. Osorio pled guilty 2 years ago to 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. So how big of a headache is this for Jeb, and just how closely was he associated to this?
Yeah, well, he was on the company's board for about 2.5 years. He was spurred by a Washington Post story earlier this week. I went and did some digging. I found a rather shameless YouTube video from the company talking about a new day for Haiti, purportedly showing how the company was building homes and shelters for Haitian earthquake victims. And oh, by the way, nothing in that video was taking place in Haiti. None of the money went to Haiti. None of the prefabricated parts to build homes and shelters got there. The whole thing was spent by the company on its expenditures of its own executives. What this guy did is really, really bad. Jeb Bush says, and there's not been any real evidence to the contrary, that he had no idea what this guy was doing. That eventually he noticed that the company's books had not been audited by some sort of outside accounting firm, which is what you're supposed to do. He raised a question about that, didn't get a response he wanted, and eventually left. Around the time other people were starting to say, this CEO isn't being honest with us. Apparently, one of the investors had noticed. He had called him, and the guy had said he was in China, and he had seen him in Miami Beach that day. And so he started realizing the guy is lying, and all that stuff. Jeb Bush's explanation: I had no idea what was going on, which is legally true. Nobody has indicated that Bush had an inkling of this. I think it's pretty unflattering. I think it doesn't look good for Bush to be on a board of a company for 2 years and not know that it was involved in a giant, fraudulent scam. I think his rivals are going to raise this. And that I think that, look, this is not, it's a long ago. This was just a few years ago. He got paid about $468,000 from this. He returned $270,000 to the trustee who's trying to get money back to the investors who were defrauded. I think it just looks bad. And one of the things that, it put Bush in this situation was when he left the governorship, He had a net worth, apparently, of only $1.3 million, which is a lot of money to a lot of us, but he decided he wanted to go out and make a lot of money. And there's nothing wrong with that. One of the things you can do when you're a popular two-term governor of Florida is serve on corporate boards. What I'm noticing, and people may recall my previous reporting on Ben Carson here, the more a company wants to associate itself with somebody from the political realm who has a good reputation and people like, it's almost a red flag, Greg. It just seems like something, the more they want to associate themselves with somebody who's trustworthy, I think those public officials have to start raising questions and look pretty carefully at this and say, wait, why do they want to associate themselves with me so much? And I think this is, turned into a serious embarrassment for Bush. The claim will be he was taken in by this guy as much as anybody else, but that's not a great pose if you want to say, America, you need me in the Oval Office for my good judgment.
Right.
And so I think this is not fatal to Bush's chances, but I think it's a headache. And I think it's a safe bet that Jeb Bush's rivals are going to bring this up early and often in the coming campaign.
Jim, it's interesting you bring up someone saying they knew nothing about a massive, giant conspiracy, because that's pretty much the explanation we heard in Foxborough today.
There you go. Look, I'm just the head coach. I don't follow this. I've never seen a football before in my life. And we're on to Seattle. We're now starting to see people say the Patriots should not be allowed to play in the Super Bowl. Now, the league's never going to do that. But, Greg, could you imagine? I'm going to use the word firestorm, and there's a 4-letter word version of that could equally apply.
Right.
Could you imagine the epic meltdown that would occur if Commissioner Goodell said, you know what, this is the second time Belichick's been caught cheating. We are vacating the Patriots' win on Sunday. Indianapolis Colts, suit up. You're going to the Super Bowl.
Well, Roger Goodell certainly doesn't have the courage to go anywhere near something like that. I wouldn't say that's a good idea, but that would be hilarious, and a spontaneous combustion inside the heads of people in the northeastern part of the United States would be something to behold. The
worst joke I've heard so far, Greg, is that the best case scenario for the Patriots is that there's a videotape of them doing it, because Goodell would never see that. We laugh because otherwise we would cry, right, Greg?
Oh, yes. If you don't know what we're talking about, consider yourself blessed. Jim, have a good day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Geraghty of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today, and be sure to join us again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.